What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over Batman Knightfall. Now, we're at the point where we're still covering the preludes that lead into the actual event. But now we get to the point where you have Batman bringing Azrael into the Bat family. But on top of that, Bane has finally arrived in Gotham, and he's now going to watch and study the Batman. Now, the opening pages of this book does a great job into bringing in Azrael into the Bat family. And really, you have Bruce telling Tim everything he needs to know about Azrael, because by this point, Batman already met him. There was a story that we have skipped over, better known as Batman's Sword of Azrael, where Batman met the character and learned everything about him. Now, I might go back and actually cover that story and go ahead and throw it into our coverage over Knightfall. Now, when it comes to Bruce, he tells Tim Drake Azrael's real name is John Paul Valley, and he belongs to an organization known as the Order of St. Dumas. Now, when it comes to Azrael's for that order, they only get called upon when somebody had crossed the line with the actual order, because Azrael is supposed to be the avenging angel. Now, when it comes to John Paul Valley, his father was actually Azrael, but he was shot and basically died in the arms of John Paul Valley. But before he died, he said, "Son, it's time for you to take up the mantle." Now, for John Paul Valley, it was really an easy transition, and here is the reason why. So when it came to his father, he technically implanted these subconscious thoughts about how to be Azrael and how the order actually works. So when time comes, he can just easily fit into the role and just take up the mantle. But that's the problem right there for Batman. You see, when it comes to the Order of St. Dumas, when they call upon Azrael, their angel, to go after somebody, they really mean kill that person off. Now for Bruce, he realized that Azrael is a great fighter, but he cannot be a killer and be part of the Bat family. And so his goal is to use his skills and Robin's skills as teachers to basically teach Azrael to become a new kind of fighter, somebody who does not kill. And so is Bruce saying, Tim, I need you to take Azrael out for the night and kind of show him how we work to begin the process of breaking away of how he used to be, thanks to the order. Now, something else I do want to mention is that when it comes to Batman, with these preludes that we are actually covering, we've seen Batman trying to push himself past the limits, meaning that this man is usually always exhausted after being Batman, but more than usual, where he basically collapsed while trying to get back up to the manor and going to bed. He couldn't even make it up the steps because this man is not giving himself proper rest. Now, when it comes to John Paul Valley, he's going to work for Bruce Wayne as a security guard at one of his buildings. You see, when it comes to Bruce, he owns a lot of buildings across Gotham. And some of those buildings he uses them for different kinds of projects for his actual company. And so for John Paul Valley, it's going to help out in one of those buildings. Now, for John Paul, his role is to protect the printers. Now, that may sound really crazy, but let me explain. So when it comes to the company, they do allow copies to be made for different blueprints for different projects, but those copies have to be approved. And once they are approved, then yes, John Paul Valley can use a key to turn on the printers to allow a person to use the printers. And that's going to be his role right now in the company. Now, you're kind of wondering, why in the world did I go in so much detail for this small section? You'll see why here in a moment. But now I want to jump back over to Bruce Wayne, and here is the reason why. So earlier I told you guys that when it comes to Bruce, this man is having a hard time, realizing that he needs to take proper rest for his body. And so earlier we saw him collapse on the steps that lead up into Wayne Manor and most likely to his bedroom to get some rest. And so because he collapsed right there and just fell asleep. You had Alfred appear, and Alfred finds Bruce, and he is so worried for Bruce Wayne. But for Bruce, he's kind of like, listen, I understand you're worried, but I know I'm okay, and I know what's best for me. And honestly, I don't need your help or your food right now. So just leave me alone. I'm going upstairs to finally get some kind of rest. But now we can jump back over to John Paul Valley. Now for John Paul, he's going home for the night, back to his apartment that was given to him by Bruce Wayne. Except when he arrives there, it's Tim Drake. And Tim says, listen, so Bruce tells me I have to show you the ropes of what it's like to be a hero in Gotham City, to show you how we work in Gotham City. So I'm gonna need you to change into this outfit. You are not gonna wear your usual Azrael outfit, but also I'm gonna show you how we can save lives without actually killing people in Gotham City. And so we do see Tim Drake and also John Paul Valley go out as the night as Robin and I guess you could say Azrael. Now, while you have the two characters out there, they're gonna follow a character known as Tony. Now, we technically saw Tony earlier. He was one of the guys in the room requesting a copy that John Paul Valley's boss had to approve. Now for Bruce, he felt like there was something up with Tony. And so he asked Tim Drake to kind of follow Tony for the night to make sure that he's actually a good person working at Wayne Enterprises. And so you have Tim and John Paul Valley follow Tony over to a warehouse where we kind of find out that Tony is actually working the Skulls, a small bikers gang in Gotham City. Now, when it comes to the Skulls, they actually have a client right now at this moment who wants to know what Bruce Wayne and his company are working on. And so when it comes to Tony, he was supposed to steal copies of a certain project and hand those copies over to the bikers gang so that they can give those copies over to their client. So their client can then beat Bruce Wayne to different deals where people are offering big, huge money for those different kinds of experiments or projects or whatever. And so for the bikers gang, they're very upset at the idea that Tony was not able to bring those copies home earlier. And so you have Tony say, hey man, listen, they got a whole system right there in that company where you are definitely unable to even leave with just one copy of the actual blueprint. And so you have the biker gang say, you know what? We'll just break into the place. That's the best way for us to actually be able to get our hands on those copies and then hand those copies over to our client. Now, Tim and John Paul Valley, they overheard the entire conversation and they now know they gotta stop this gang before they're able to get their hands on those copies. Now, the rest of the first chapter is really more of Tim Drake and John Paul being able to work together to actually take down the gang. But there is a problem. You see, when it comes to John Paul Valley, he is so used to ways of how he fights. He's not used to the ways of how Tim Drake and Batman fight. So, for example, when it comes to Tim, he told John Paul, we don't go in until we remove all the guns out of their hands. But for John Paul, he automatically just goes right in, even though most of the gang members still have guns. But Tim and John Paul, they're able to bring down the entire gang and also Tony. But for Tim, he's kind of wondering, you know, this might take us a little bit longer until we're actually able to break you. But at the same time, we did do a good job working together. But also, at the very last page, we do see Bruce Wayne calling up a doctor known as Sandra Kinsolving. Now, when it comes to Sandra, she's great at physical therapy. And matter of fact, at this time, she was also helping out Tim Drake's dad as well. And so for Bruce, he feels like with her being his physical therapist, she may be able to actually help him in his body. And maybe he will no longer feel so exhausted and weak and also in pain all over his body. Now, the next two chapters that we have to talk about deals with a character we just met in our last video, better known as Ulysses Armstrong. Now, when it comes to Armstrong, he is technically a young boy who was at a military academy, but unfortunately, he was always picked on by his fellow classmates. And so because of that, he stayed in the library, reading different books about different leaders over the years who were able to win big battles in different wars over the years. And so for him, it led to him saying, you know what? I can do the same thing. And so his current goal is to take over Gotham City. And so in our last video, he was able to take over a small gang and give that small gang enough weapons to actually take down other gangs in Gotham City. Now, he does have a master plan, and part of that master plan is to take out Batman as well, so that he'll be able to take over Gotham properly. And so we dive into Detective Comics number 655. Now, in the opening pages for this book, we actually do pick up with Batman. And this is still a Batman who is very exhausted. But again, he has to continue on. He has to protect Gotham. And his main goal right now is to find the general in his gang, because he heard what they have done so far in Gotham. Now, he's currently watching over a different gang in Gotham known as the Runners. Now, the Runners are one of the deadliest gangs in Gotham, but he feels like whoever this new gang is, they have enough courage to actually take on the Runners. And really, Batman was right, because out of nowhere, here comes the general. Here comes his army of thugs attacking the home base of the Runners, and they were not ready for this kind of attack. And on top of that, when it comes to the general, again, he has weapons that are way advanced for a regular gang, and so he actually has the advantage. And matter of fact, he's able to find the leader of the Runners, better known as Bojack. And so it does get into the point where you do have the general being able to surround Bojack with his men. And most likely it looks like that you're gonna have Bojack dying here. But luckily Batman arrives. Now, in the middle of the battle, Bojack is able to grab the general and make him a hostage. Now for Batman, he really can't wrap his head around the idea that this young boy is actually the leader of this new gang. Right now, all he sees is a young boy being a hostage, and he has to go out of his way to save the young boy. Now, it does get to the point where you do have Batman see Bojack throw the kid off the rooftop. And so Batman has no choice but to also jump, but hoping that he'll be able to get there in time to grab the general and save his life, which of course he is able to do. Now, after being able to save the general, you have Batman slowly getting back up after kind of crashing hard to a random balcony on a different building. But because he was not watching his back, you have the young general grab something to hit Batman right in the back of the head. And Batman falls straight down to the ground level, hitting the ground really hard. Now, for the general, that should killed off Batman. He believes that Batman is now dead. He believes that he just accomplished one of his goals, because when it came to the general, he had all these different ideas of how he was going to take over Gotham City. And one of those ideas was to take out Batman. And just like that, he believes he has done it. But Batman was able to get away and head back over to the Batcave. Now, we do get another scene where you have Batman go back home, and this time he is bleeding a lot. And for Alfred, once again, he's worried about Bruce. But once again, you have Bruce tell Alfred, leave me alone. I know what's best for me. I know what to do next. I don't need your help. And really, I don't need you to worry about me. And so for Alfred, once again, he has no choice but to go ahead and back away. Now we jump over to the general, and when it comes to the general, he's out there celebrating right now with his crew because they were able to complete 2 parts of their 4-part plan. Take out the Runners, take out Batman, take out the police, and take out Black Mask. Tonight, they were able to take out 2 people in that 4-part plan, the Batman and also the runners. But now it's just Black Mask and the police. But here's the thing though. See, they found somebody who was going around claiming that he works for the Black Mask, except he tells the general, listen, nobody has seen the Black Mask since the Batman battle in our first video for Knightfall. And so because of that, it's the general saying to himself, okay, you know what? If nobody has seen the Black Mask, it means 2 things. 1, he left Gotham, or 2, he is most likely dead. Either way, the Black Mask is no longer in my way to complete my goal, to take over Gotham City. And so now that only leaves one more part to my plan. Take out the police department. But now we jump back over to Bruce Wayne. Now this is Bruce going undercover and pretending to be some kind of homeless person and hoping to find some kind of information about who is the actual leader of the group that's going around attacking the different gangs. And really, it takes him a matter of minutes, maybe hours, where he overhears the same name over and over again. The general, the general. And so for him, now he knows who is in charge. But the question is, how can he find the general? And so you have Bruce being able to take down 2 gang members who were going to jump him, but he used his Batman skills to take care of them. And once he does that, they're all like, okay, listen, if you're looking for our boss, he is currently holding up at the food center. You go there, most likely you should find him. And Batman heads there quickly. Now, once you have Bruce arrive at that food center, unfortunately, he's a tad bit too late. They already left the place. Matter of fact, they cleared out. They don't plan to go back there at all. And so for Bruce, he is very worried what this could possibly mean. And really, he already knows what it means. They're going to attack somebody else very soon. He finds their plans. He looks over their plans. And once he does, he realizes that, oh my God, this boss, this general, he is almost a perfect leader. He has thought out every single thing when it comes to their next attack. And right now, they're about to attack the police department. And so getting into the final chapter for today's video, we actually pick up with the general and his army beginning to attack a police precinct. Now, this one right here in this area of Gotham is kind of like the weakest one because they don't have a lot of officers working there. So it's real easy for the general and his army to be able to actually take over this building, but also they're going for the weapons, they're going for the drugs, they're going for the prisoners as well. Everything inside of there can be used in some kind of way to help them be able to do more things in Gotham down the road. But luckily you have Batman appear. Now, once he does appear, this is where you have the army realize that their boss, the general, did not take care of Batman, that he's still around. And so that goes against their plan because remember, Batman was like part 4 of their plan. They had to get rid of the Bat if they were going to be able to take over Gotham. And now he's here again. Now they do attack the Batmobile, but here's the thing. Batman's not there. Matter of fact, he has it on autopilot. And so he's outside the actual vehicle and he's getting inside the building to hopefully take down the general. Now, once you have Batman being able to get inside the building, we get the opportunity to see what the officers were trying to do as a way to hold the building, to hold the line against the general and his army. But the problem is, they couldn't do much because the general, his army, they have advanced weapons. Those weapons made it hard for the officers to even hold the line. But unfortunately for the general and also the army of his, Batman appeared and Batman was able to help out the officers. Now, but there is another problem. It's Batman. You see, when it comes to Bruce, he looks at the general as a child who needs to be reasoned with, a child who needs to sit down and have a conversation with. This child may have just one bad day, and that explains why he has gone down this wrong path. But the problem is Batman is trying to do that before being able to properly stop the general. And so when you have the general play this "I'm scared, I'm sorry what I did" card, Batman actually feels bad for the child and then gets stabbed by the child. Now, once you have Batman realize where he's at fault at, he's all like, you know what? That was the wrong move. I need to take him down, and then later on, I can try to work with him, or somebody else can try to work with him. And so you actually have Batman being able to stop the general and hand him over to the GCPD. But right after you have Batman being able to take down the general, he had no idea that he was being watched by a character named Bird. Now, Bird actually works for Bane, and this is Bane trying to study the Batman, getting ready for the big battle against Batman that we're going to see in Knightfall. And so this is Bane saying, if he struggled with someone like that, the general, I wonder how he does with someone like the Joker or somebody from the upper class of super villains. And so for Bane, he's almost ready to jump into Knightfall. Now, the last page of this book, it shows Alfred heading over to the room of Bruce Wayne, hoping that Bruce would be in bed, and he'll leave the food by Bruce's bed to say, hey man, once you wake up, eat this food and you should be better. Except when he turns around, Bruce is not in bed. Bruce couldn't even make it to the bed. Matter of fact, he collapsed on the chair in his room, just knocked out cold. And Alfred realizing that this is really not good right now, that Bruce needs to slow down. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.